Hello. Today is all about understanding more about the system changes that are happening in your body to all of your systems during the perimenopause transition, and why we need to take a holistic approach to that. And also thinking about, I'm going to help you think about the things that you can change. So behaviors, lifestyle choices that you can embed, adopt, change, to make sure that you've got a solid foundation of health. The great news is that there are so many things we can do to support our health naturally. Now, I'm not here to tell you whether to take HRT or not. I'm not advocating that you should take a holistic approach. Take the approach that is right for you. Lots of people find HRT really beneficial. Some people don't want to. That is completely your choice. I am not for or against it. So I just wanted to kind of address that. And I'm not, I'm definitely not saying, oh, do everything naturally. That's the only way to do it. What I'm here to focus on is the things that you can control and put in place now to help that transition. And it is really important that we make some changes to our health. What worked for us in, many years ago when we were 20 and 30 will not work for us now because of the changes happening inside of our body. And we have to make those changes. We can't continue to be overworked, overstressed, over giving our time to everybody else and then expect to feel fine. We have to make some changes now if we want to continue to feel fine. And this I think is the kind of crux of why many people are struggling, many women are struggling with their health and with their symptoms, is because we are continuing to live in the same way that we did when we were 20. We may be exercising at the same, sort of frequency, with the same expectations. We're eating all of the same foods. We're living the life in the same way, or we're not really thinking about consciously how we're living our lives, what our habits look like. And we perhaps haven't even made any conscious changes to our health habits. And this is the time to do it. This is the time to review it. So we've talked about auditing well-being and thinking about all the different things we can put in place. But I want to kind of expand on that and address why we need to do it and how to, the things that we need to be thinking about and why. So ultimately, when we're going through the perimenopause, the system change that's happening, the major change that's happening, is the fluctuation of the hormone estrogen, which we all know about now, thanks to lots of people highlighting it in the media. I think we kind of know it's about estrogen. The thing about estrogen is it's not declining on a sort of steady line down. It's not just as simple, it's just getting less and less in our bodies. Actually, it's fluctuating. It fluctuates for a long time, which explains why there'll be highs and lows and changes that sometimes feel more difficult. It means sometimes life feels more difficult. We might suffer anxiety at certain times or not. And you might begin to notice, and I'd definitely encourage you to start being aware of, if you are still in a cycle and you're still having periods, to notice differences month on month and to track them. So I simply track the number of days from the first bleed to the end, so I kind of know how long my cycle is, so I can spot when it starts to really change. At the moment, for me, I wouldn't consider myself in perimenopause. But I have noticed some system changes, some changes in my body and the way it feels. So I'm tracking the length of my cycle, but I'm also becoming a lot more in tune with what's happening. So changes in mood, fluctuations in energy levels, there are times when, you know, my sleep patterns are disturbed and I'm not sleeping well, and then other times when I'm feeling more rested, sometimes feeling restless. So I can definitely see that things are changing. So that's kind of the first place to start, is the fact that we need to be more aware and connect into ourselves, so that we start to understand ourselves better, and then we start to know where we can make these tweaks and make these changes, and really start to observe what helps us feel better. Because of course this is about you being in control of your health, and you'll find that some things work for you and some things don't work for you. So there isn't a blanket approach, you know, do these exercises, these are all good for the menopause. You know, we're such complex and unique creatures that we don't work like that. What works for me is not going to necessarily work for you. Sometimes things that work for me at some stages in my cycle won't work for me at other times, and that's the same for you as well. So it's really important that we tune in to ourselves, that you become your own expert and your own advocate for your own health. And I think this might be the first time we've ever done this in our lives, because up until now you may have and again, we're all different, we all have different pathways, but you may have been focusing on your career, and or focusing on being a mother, or focusing on caring for other people. So there's going to be a lot of different roles that you will have had. You might have had a combination of all of those. That, you know, we take our health for granted, because actually, you know, when we are young, we don't need to focus on it as much. We only tend to focus on our health, don't we, when we start to feel the aches and the pains and the problems and things that are starting to get us down. And in a way, that is our body talking to us and telling us that we do need to pay attention to ourselves. So I'm here to give you that nudge as well, that kind of gentle guidance to say, yeah, this is the time, whether you're approaching perimenopause and thinking about it as your next phase, or you're in it, you know, you're experiencing symptoms that are troubling you, that are challenging you and impacting on your life. Wherever you are in that sort of phase, I'm here to give you that nudge to say, now is the time to put yourself centre of your priorities. So, you know, it's about self-care, but it goes beyond that. It goes deeper than just giving ourselves little treats and bubble baths and things like that. This is about understanding what your well-being needs, what you need to do to take care of yourself, so that your transformation can be smoothed out. It can be much smoother. It doesn't need to be a struggle. You need to kind of understand when you need to get help, because there might be times when you want to get help, and I'm not here to say follow a certain path. I'm not here to say that you should or shouldn't take HRT, for example. That is your choice. I'm here to kind of help you and empower you and give you that gentle support to think about what is right for you and what's going to help you. Because quite honestly, we cannot continue being overworked, overstressed, overgiving to other people. We can't continue in that vein, because if we do that, then we're not looking after ourselves, we're stressing our system, we're not supporting that fluctuation of estrogen. So let's think about all of the different systems that estrogen impacts on. Basically, it's all of them. So it's everything, including our cognitive, our brain health, our metabolic health, so our gut health, our cardiovascular system, so our heart health, our musculoskeletal system, so our bone health, our muscles, every single function in our body that helps us digest food, helps us de-stress, helps us feel good, helps us be strong, helps us feel good, is impacted upon by estrogen. It has a part to play in all of those. So when there's a fluctuation, that does result in the change in that system, and that explains why we experience such varied and vast symptoms And when you start exploring those symptoms, when all those symptoms were first shared in the media, you know, that big long list of felt very negative, all these crazy things that start happening, beyond the ones that we know about, like hot flashes, you start thinking, oh crikey, how come it's just, why is it that big? Why is the list of symptoms that big? And because it impacts on every single system. It affects our brain, and our brain tells our body how we cope with all of the different things. Our reproductive system, our ovaries talk to our brain, and vice versa, our brain talks to our ovaries. So they have a direct connection, that when those hormones start to change, we start to experience those different changes in our bodies. You know, anything from bloating to hot sweats to not being able to sleep to not being able to think clearly to brain fog to forgetfulness, all of those different things. Now, I want to focus on what you can do to make a positive impact on changing those. So it is really important about thinking of your behaviours, so your lifestyle behaviours, what you eat, how you nourish your body, and how you move your body. So the key things to focus on are food, exercise, sleep, and stress. So I'm going to give you 4 things. Now, I think we sometimes try and oversimplify things, so we kind of want to follow a set plan and make it really, really straightforward for ourselves. And again, unfortunately, it's not always straightforward to think, well, if we just do this exercise, you know, there isn't like a set plan of these exercises will be the ones that you need to do. It doesn't really work like that. We are all different, so we need to consider that. We need to know that we have a different body, a different system. Things will work for us that don't work for other people. But the key things to think about, so food is all about nourishing your body. Now, when we're in a perimenopausal sort of phase of our life, we are automatically in an inflamed, more of an inflamed state within our body. So we need to think about how to eat to nourish our body and focus on anti-inflammatory foods, and there are so many of them. So many things. So we know things like turmeric are great for anti-inflammatory. But thinking about, rather than trying to cut down on calories and trying to follow a diet and restricting food, how about we think about nourishing ourselves with whole foods, great quality foods, colourful foods, so eating the rainbow. Starting to really pay attention to what we can add to our plate that is going to nourish us. So in every meal, thinking, you know, what can I add to this plate of food that's going to give me something extra for my system? So that could be something that has omega-3s in, could be something that's good, that has magnesium in, that's going to be good for your the way your muscles feel and the aches and pains in your muscles. Could be something that's going to help with inflammation. Could be an antioxidant type of food. You know, it could be, there's so many different foods. I encourage you to become really curious about foods and about the nutritional value of food, rather than worrying about calories in and calories out, because quite honestly, that is a outdated approach to eating. You might have found it worked when you were younger. I know I certainly found that if I just reduced my carb intake for a week, I could probably drop a couple of kilos temporarily, or, you know, just cut down for a couple of weeks and then you've lost a bit of weight. It doesn't work like that, does it now? You know that, I'm sure, you know, you're probably struggling to lose weight. Or rather than trying to lose weight, let's forget about cutting calories. Let's think about what we can add to our plate that's going to give us, that's going to nourish our whole system, our brain health, everything. So I encourage you to be curious and think about it in the sense that if you followed guidelines of trying to eat whole foods, trying to not eat processed foods, cut down on processed foods. Sometimes it's difficult, especially if we're living, you know, we're on the go. Trying to cook foods from scratch, or eating raw foods. You know, you might not be a big cooker, a big, you know, person who's into recipes, and I'm not, to be honest with you. I sometimes just eat kind of raw vegetables. That sounds really boring, doesn't it? But I'll just, I might open a can of chickpeas and then mix in, just chop some peppers up, chop some tomatoes up, and you're sort of creating a bit of a salad. But I'll, if I'm short on time or can't be bothered to cook something, I'll just think about mixing together some whole foods that I've got in my fridge and enjoy kind of nourishing my body in that sense. What is really important at this time of life to support your muscular health and your bone health is protein, making sure you're getting good quality protein into your diet. So whether you are a meat eater or a vegetarian or a vegan, making sure that you're eating the best quality of protein that you can. Again, it's completely up to you what you choose to eat or not eat. If you like eating meats, probably veer more on the healthier meats like chicken. Fish is definitely a really good protein if you want to eat those, if you want to eat sort of animals. If you're a vegan or a vegetarian, what I would say is be very, very cautious of some of the protein that's sold to vegans and vegetarians, and I'm saying this as somebody who is a plant-based person, so I'm not anti-veganism at all. I am a vegan, but what I would say is that there's a lot of vegan proteins out there that are processed, that will say high in protein on the packet, but it's got many ingredients in it. So just be wary of that. That's all I'm saying. I've investigated that a lot and realised that, I think sometimes we have this perception that if it's vegan and vegetarian, that therefore it's healthy, and it's not necessarily. So read the packet, make sure it's not got lots of different ingredients in. That's a good way of telling. So that's nourishment. So we think about the nourishment, what we can add, eating whole foods, trying to not eat processed food, trying to eat real foods that actually are foods, not packed with synthetic ingredients that's ultra processed. The other thing to think about is exercise, movement. Now, we've probably all heard about strength training and how important that is, and it really is for your bone health. So we lose our bone density. I can't remember the terminology, decreases rapidly if we do nothing about lifting weights and even sort of impact exercise, body weight exercise. So it's really important to think about how to add in strength-based exercise. And that doesn't have to look like lifting weights at the gym, because again, we're all at a different level of exercise. We're all at a different stage. You might be completely new to exercise. How could you make sure that you're lifting heavy things? It could be that you're lifting things around the house. It could be, thinking about what you could do to improve your strength training. Now, there's lots of different ways, and I guess I'm encouraging you to explore that for yourself, to kind of see what works for you. If you are a gym member, then strength training is great. My advice in any, if you're embarking on adding more strength training, think about your alignment and your posture. Make sure that your internal systems are ready for the amount of weight that you want to start lifting. So it's kind of a word of warning, really. Having worked with lots of clients with pelvic floor issues, making sure that your pelvic floor especially is strong enough and prepared and responsive to be able to lift heavy. Whatever you do, go gradually, go slowly. So if you want to start lifting weights and you want to start adding that in, make sure you take a phased approach. Look for someone or somewhere that you can follow a program, or someone to guide you that's going to take a really careful approach. There's loads of great PTs on Instagram, for example, that specialize in women's health. So seek those people out. Seek out people who are experts in women's health, and especially exercise for over 40s, who have that knowledge of the perimenopause and what that does to the body, because I see people all the time having injuries from suddenly embarking on an exercise program because they've heard that strength training is really important, and it is, but then causing injuries, or then creating the pelvic floor issues that they had before, causing them to be much worse. So their prolapses increasing and feeling much more uncomfortable because they've started lifting heavy and their body isn't ready for that yet. So definitely seek that out, seek some guidance, make sure that whatever you are doing, that your technique is there, that you're not going to cause injuries, and go slowly, because there's no rush. Starting it is great. Having some exercise that is strength based is really good. The other thing I'm going to say about exercise is, though, it's almost like the opposite advice, is to make sure you're not doing too much, that you're exhausting your body. And this might be where you need to change. So if you are an avid exerciser, you might love doing HIIT classes, cross training, running, spinning and all of that kind of really active, really high impact stuff. That's not always going to be the best thing for you. And if you're feeling like, actually, I'm doing loads of exercise, I'm going to the gym or going to class 4, 5, 6 times a week, I'm not losing any weight, I'm actually feeling bloated, I'm feeling exhausted, and you're getting some negative signs of that, that could be a sign that you're doing too much. And actually changing what you do, adapting it for the age that you are, is really important. And it's not about giving up. It's not about saying that I'm getting older, so therefore I can't do the things I love. It's just about being realistic. It's about actually acknowledging that you don't need to do the things that you did when you were 20. So really, if you are experiencing some negative side effects from all that exercise, or you think, how do I not feel better from all this exercise, and that is a bit of a kind of clue for you to realise, maybe you need to make some changes. On the other hand, if you're doing lots of exercise and you're feeling great from it, you're not exhausted and your body feels good, then continue. So this is really about listening to your own body and what it's telling you. And this is why I said at the beginning, it's really about putting yourself centre, making yourself a focus on your well-being, checking in every day, having tools to check in and think, how am I feeling? How have the actions that I've done over the last week impacted on how I feel today, and what do I need to do next? Because you'll start to understand and you'll start to see patterns. You can track it, you can write down, what's happening, and you can start to just tweak it. And it's really important that it's a kind of an ongoing process. Now, the last 2 things I want to talk about are, and they kind of go hand in hand, I suppose, is stress and also sleep. So with stress, we want to be managing stress. So it's not about having a completely, zen life and not having stressors. It's about developing stress resilience. And stress resilience will then help you, will help your nervous system to cope with stressful situations. So there will be times in your life when things crop up. Maybe there's a change in your family circumstances and something happens and you need to respond to it, and that will cause a spike in stress. That is a natural response. We do have stresses in our lives. The more that we practice stress resilience, so calming techniques or things that will support our nervous system, the more that we're building up a resilience of stress. So there's two ways to approach this, and they both have a really positive impact. So ultimately, we're thinking about our nervous system health. We're thinking about supportive practices to support our nervous system. Now, I think the obvious approach is often calming activities. So things like meditation or yoga nidra, or taking time to breathe, close our eyes, lie down, making purposeful time to calm the nervous system. So we feel that softening, that releasing, that lovely kind of letting go feeling where the nervous system just relaxes and the brain relaxes and everything just feels much better. And then we come out of that and it's like we've just had a reset. So that is one of the ways that we definitely want to be including into a daily practice if possible, even if it's just 5 minutes, to, take time to tune in, tune out the world, tune out all the other expectations of us, and to think about ourselves. So that's really going to nurture our nervous system, which is our support system. And the more we do it, the better at it we get. So I know now, I've been practicing Yoga Nidra for probably, where are we now? 10 months, I'd say. Only 10 months. I've been a yoga teacher for a while, but I've only really just got into Yoga Nidra. And I use Insight Timer, and I search for a free Yoga Nidra and I put one of those on. But what I find now is when I get into my little cozy Yoga Nidra nest, as they describe it, my body, I can feel it getting into that calm state really quickly. Like when I first started practicing it, I'd be fidgeting, I'd be like, oh, and it'd take me ages to kind of get down into that like relaxed state. So the more I do it, I can immediately get into that relaxed state, and that's how I know that it's working for me, because the more I practice it, the better at it that I'm getting, and so it feels familiar, it feels like home, and that's what we want for our nervous system, to have a place that it can rest, to develop that place for rest. Now the other thing that you can do that's really feels completely different, but challenge your nervous system through movement and play. So our nervous system enjoys changing things up, doing things differently. And one of the ways that I do this in my yoga classes and when I'm working with people is introducing different ways to enjoy movement. So it could be, throwing a tennis ball against a wall. It could be standing on a block and practicing balance. Balance is a really nice way to nurture the nervous system, because you're creating new pathways in the body. You're connecting your mind to your body, which is great. Your nervous system enjoys that. It enjoys exploring new things. So it doesn't always have to be a calming, relaxing practice to nurture your nervous system. So that's really important to kind of remember, that it's not always about relaxing. Actually, playing, doing something fun, doing something new, moving the body in a different way is great for the nervous system. So that is all your stress resilience focus. So think about what you can do there. And then the last one is sleep. Now, sleep can be very tricky for many people. Many of us have difficult relationships with sleep. And I know that if you've got young children at home, it's very difficult to be in control of your own sleep. So I completely get that. What we need to try and do is think about what we can control and what we can put in place to get the best quality sleep we possibly can. So things that you can control are not being on screens too late at night, not drinking caffeine too late in the day, having time to switch off, having a bedtime routine. So if you do have children, you've probably developed a bedtime routine for them, especially when they were younger, that involved having a bath, putting the lights on low, reading stories, all these nurturing things, because in your mind, you're like, come on, you've got to get to sleep. And you did all these lovely, lovely things for your child. Or if you don't have children, that's kind of what happens. Why not do that for ourselves? Why don't we do that for ourselves? Why do we suddenly, we'll be watching a film on Netflix and then we're like, oh, better go to bed. And then suddenly we lie in bed and go, oh, I'm wide awake. Because we haven't done anything to wind down, have we? So I really like the idea of creating ourselves a bedtime routine, of maybe it includes some of the, some nervous system support. Maybe it includes a bit of meditation, some reading, being able to switch off, switch out of the busy life and come into yourself. And so it could be anything. It could be, you could replicate what you might have done if you've got children, what you might have done for them. Have a bath, put on some soothing music, turn the lights down low, make sure we're not on screens, and really treat yourself kindly. So that's one way of thinking about sleep, is the things that we can control, because we can't always. Sometimes, if we work shifts, if we've got young children, we're not necessarily in full control that we can definitely get 8 hours. We don't all need 8 hours, actually. That's another thing to be aware of, that think about what's going to work for you the best. For me personally, I'm quite okay with like 6-7 hours. I still function really well. I don't necessarily need 8 hours. I don't very often sleep for 8 hours, but 7 hours for me is really good, works for me. So sleep. So there we are. So there's some things to think about in more detail. So you've done your personalised well-being plan and your audit, and I want you to think about and committing to yourself that you do need to make some changes, that we can't continue with the same habits that we had when we were 20. So it's time to review those habits now. What do we need to change? And then those 4 things that I mentioned. So food, how can we nourish our system? Movement, how can we move that's going to be supportive? What's the best ways for us that we're going to enjoy, that we're going to love doing, that's not too much, that's not too little, that's going to help us increase our strength, because we need to do that, and it's not going to cause harm to ourselves. Stress, building stress resilience, having fun with it, playing with movement, and also having some calming techniques. And then our sleep. And the reason we need to do that is because we are preparing for this system change. And when we get to, that menopause stage when our periods do stop, we will be different. We'll be wiser, we'll be calmer, we won't care so much about what people think. At the moment, in perimenopause, we're going through a lot of changes. So it's important that we do change what we do. We change the input, because internally there's lots of changes going on, and I would like you to be able to embrace this change and be in control of it and empowered, so that you can make the right choices for yourself, so that you can put boundaries in place, and then you can seek help with things when you need to seek help. And there's nothing wrong with that, you need to be able to be in full control. You need to be in full awareness of what is good and what is the difference between the sort of myths and the bad science, and actually think about what our system needs, so that you can have a smoother transition and transformation. And then we can look forward to that time when we are this wise woman who doesn't care about what people think. I'm looking forward to that. I'm aspiring to that person who's doesn't worry so much, doesn't have as much on our plate. So that's really important to think about. So I hope this has been helpful. Do get in touch if you've got any specific questions. I'm here to help you. I can help you with lots of those areas that we've talked about. But spend a bit of time on this. You're worth that time. And take care of yourself is my main message. See you soon.